All right, so after reading Margaret Archer, it's really an interesting piece of writing. And so, two things that I wanted to react to that I really find interesting. One is reflexivity, and it's something that Margaret really talks about. So, reflexivity, in fact, according to Archer, is defined as the regular exercise of the mental ability shared by all normal people to consider themselves in relation to the other or the social context or vice versa. But also, I read about, there is another author, Pelo, who talks about reflexivity as the generative capacity, mechanisms for the capacity to self-analyze or critical self-consciousness, which is very interesting. So, I started to think of, as a student, well, myself, I started to think of reflexivity, and I said, oh, let me take an example and think of the computer. So, in fact, basically what reflexivity is talking about is in another way, is the generative capacity for a theory to be self-explanatory. So, let's say a computer. So a computer is designed to diagnose diseases in people. But actually, the same computer, you can turn it around. So here I'm turning my computer around, which is used in hospitals to analyze and detect diseases. But the same computer, I can turn it around and I say, geez, scan yourself and tell me if you have viruses. So in fact, basically what I'm trying to show here is that a computer actually has the capacity to self-analyze. It has the generative capacity to be critically self-conscious, which is interesting for reflexivity. I don't know if it's a very good example, but something that I found interesting that I wanted to share. So Margaret talks about 4 modes of reflexivity. So the good example, and I really enjoyed that because she talks about, so a guy who has a toothache, so you start to, or let's say myself, I have a toothache, so it starts to bother me and I start to think about it. So I go to share with maybe my girlfriend, and she says to me, oh yeah, I think the best thing to do is to go and see a dentist. So here is what is the first mode of reflexivity, which is communicative reflexivity. Thought and talk. So you think about it and you share it. This is the communicative mode of reflexivity. The second mode, so then I decide to go and see a dentist. So I get in my car, I have to take time to enter the traffic, I'm in control. This is the second mode of reflexivity that Archer calls the self-contained autonomous mode of reflexivity. And the third one is I've gone to see the dentist, and he says to me, yes, the best thing to do is to have a tooth, to extract your tooth, but you need to pay $100. And I said, geez, this is too much money. I don't need to pay. Maybe I should go to consult another dentist to compare the price. This is the third mode of reflexivity, which is mental reflexivity. So there I'm comparing, I'm analyzing, I'm trying to take a decision, I'm looking at options. The fourth mode of reflexivity is I've gone to see another dentist, and the receptionist says to me, yes, the cost maybe is $100, but the operation is very, very painful. So here, I start to think of the cost that I'm trying to compare between the first and the second, but also now I have a third issue to consider, which is the pain that is going to really inflict on me. So these are 2 issues that are actually irreconcilable. I named them both. So this is called the fractured mode of reflexivity. And this is very, very interesting. Now, the other important thing around the whole reflexivity that Archer talks about is the relationship between reflexivity and habit. So, I agree with Archer in a way that I think you become, first, habit is a self-actuating disposition or tendency to engage in a previously adapted or acquired form of action. So habits are maybe you're having fun, things that you do unnoticed. At this time, when you are in the mode of, being habitual or in a habitual activity, you are not being reflexive. So what Arthur Archer is saying is that reflexivity begins when habits are disrupted. So in another way is when you are confronted with an issue to deal with, then you start to be reflexive. So now, from what I am trying to do here is that, okay, so I'm going to school. I was born, a different society, and I'm no more. So I was an educator, and I started to go to school. I'm learning. In the process, because of my life history, a lot of people have researched me to analyze my social conditioning. But then more as I become educated myself, I start to feel, I have the capacity to self-analyze my social conditioning. And I feel here the theory of reflexivity I can use it to analyze the self-conditioning of my life history. So for example, I was a refugee, and from being a refugee, I started to travel a lot of countries, and I'm back to school. And now I have developed a critical capacity to analyze different contexts. So, okay, I'm going to use this theory of reflexivity to self-analyze the conditioning of my life. And I think this is a theory, certainly I'm going to apply on myself. The other thing is that Archer talks about in her book two concepts: contextual continuity and contextual discontinuities. The other ones are morphogenesis and morphostasis. Now, so contextual continuity is the generative mechanism resulting from the successful implementation of a variety of power strategies leading to the strategic containment of structural differentiation and additional diversification. So in fact, in my understanding of contextual continuities is, for example, the maintenance of culture, the maintenance of a conventional practice. So, I started to realize I could apply this as a theory also in my study. I'm trying to look at Liberian couples who came from their country and they are here. They came with their culture, and from a gender perspective, from the perspective of looking at the interplay between cosmopolitanism and the maintenance of culture, some subjects in the in this community wants to maintain their culture. And for me, this is contextual continuity. Now, migration is challenging and disrupting the maintenance of these cultural practices, these conventional practices. So you see, the generative mechanisms of the women to protest and disrupt these conventional practices, in fact, can be classified as contextual discontinuities. So this is something that I feel also I can apply in my study. Now, the other thing around morphogenesis. So morphogenesis actually is also the introduction of varieties, the ability to have new thoughts, additional, the conspectus of varieties, the introduction, additional generation, and more ideas, variety to new ideas, new cultures, innovation to interact with one another. So this is morphogenesis, and I feel, again, morphogenesis can be in the same category as contextual discontinuities because it brings about some kind of change. And morphostasis actually is the maintenance, the containment of variety, the prevention for the introduction of variety in society. So again, if I put this in the context of my study, the subjects in my community, the particular group of people who travel through migration, and there are some here in Canada, but I want to maintain their culture, what is happening theoretically here is morphostasis, so they want to maintain what have been doing. Thank you very much. This is really interesting.